Clock, ABC 10 News at 5 starts right now.
The Petco Park Vaccination Superstation is closing again, just as San Diego County gets ready to expand eligibility. The trickle-down effect this closure will have on thousands of people anxiously awaiting to get their turn to vaccinate. Plus, high school athletes back on the field for their first official practice in almost a year. A long list of rules they will need to follow. And a tense scene unfolding in Chula Vista, where the SWAT team is surrounded at home after a man claimed to kill his wife.
ABC 10 News at 5 starts now.
And good evening. I'm Steve Atkinson. I am joined remotely by my co-anchor Lindsay Pena. We're going to be checking in with her shortly. But first, here we go again. Just days after reopening to the public, the Petco Park Vaccine Superstation is closing now for a third time because of a nationwide shortage of the Moderna vaccine. That closure, we understand, starts tomorrow, should run at least through Monday, maybe Tuesday. We're going to have more on that in just a moment. But at any moment, the FDA is expected to authorize emergency use of the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine to battle the coronavirus pandemic, making it now the third COVID-19 vaccine in the U.S. This comes after the Vaccine Advisory Panel recommended the approval earlier this afternoon. It will be the first one-shot vaccine, making it easier to distribute. The vaccine was found to be 72% effective here in the U.S. In the meantime, California is also expected to receive more than 1 million doses of that Johnson & Johnson vaccine over the next 3 weeks, with about a third of that total arriving next week. Governor Gavin Newsom made that announcement today while in Central Valley.
That single dose provides opportunities to bring those doses and vaccines to where people are, because those doses don't require the storage that the Moderna and Pfizer doses require.
The Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines must be stored in standard freezers, but the Johnson & Johnson vaccine can be stored for 3 months in regular refrigerators. We also know there are a lot of questions and different experiences with the vaccine rollout, so our ABC 10 News In-Depth team is committed to tracking down the answers and sharing your stories. If you have one, send us an email to tips@10news.com.
High school athletes are back on the field for their first official practice today. It comes just 1 week after a judge ruled youth sports can resume play despite not meeting requirements set by the state. ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer De La Cruz is live at Scripps Ranch, where practice has already started.
Hey, Lindsay, you could feel the energy shifting as soon as these kids took the field here about half an hour ago. This is the 2021 Scripps Ranch High School football team. This is the first practice that they're able to even throw a ball to each other and put on those helmets. And with their first game in 2 weeks, they have a lot of work to do. 17-year-old Gunnar Hensley hasn't been wasting any time during lockdown.
I've been staying ready, doing running, throwing with my teammates, even though we weren't allowed to practice.
The Mission Hills High School quarterback had to do most of his training on his own, outside of conditioning with the team.
We'd still get together and lift weights, so that kind of helped us cope with the lockdown mentally.
But that all changes Friday with their first official practice.
The intensity is going to be picked up a lot once you put on those pads and helmets. It's basically go time.
Teams are easing into their new routines. It's the first time they'll be using equipment and will slowly move toward implementing more contact.
We're going to be not hitting yet, but soon we're going to be hitting. Super psyched. Me and my teammates are pretty pumped up just that we get to go back on there with some actual gear now, like helmets and pads.
The season is only becoming a reality thanks to local coaches who went to court fighting against state guidelines to get their kids back on the field. The push from parents also gaining momentum after many became vocal on social media, rallying behind a grassroots group called Let Them Play San Diego.
One day, my dad and mom started a Facebook page to try to get us to play. I didn't know much about it, but I would have never thought it would have turned into something this big.
With just 2 weeks until their first game, players have to hit the ground running to make up for lost time.
We've been just hoping for a season. That's all we could really do. I'm looking forward to getting ready for the games because now we could actually start preparing.
Back out here live, once again, the first official football practice of the year here at Scripps Ranch High School. And Coach tells me parents aren't allowed to come watch practice because of COVID safety protocols, but they do anticipate at least immediate family will be able to come and watch some of those games. And once again, that first game is scheduled 2 weeks from now. Reporting live, Jennifer De La Cruz, ABC 10 News.
Even though San Diego student athletes can now legally play, there are many rules teams must follow. ABC 10 News reporter Rena Nakano spoke to the CIF commissioner, who says some teams are having a difficult time navigating the logistics of the San Diego specific lawsuit.
Starting Friday, youth sports is back.
It's been almost a year coming, and we're just excited we're at a point where we are right now.
Last Friday, Governor Gavin Newsom allowed outdoor sports to resume as long as the area case rate falls below 14 per 100,000. San Diego does not meet that criteria, but 2 local student athletes went to court arguing that they should be able to play too if the pros and colleges play. A judge agreed, granting a temporary restraining order against the state rules allowing all youth sports in the county to resume as long as they, quote, follow the same or similar COVID-19 protocols imposed for competition in professional and or collegiate sports within the county. CIF San Diego Section Commissioner Joe Hines says it's not that simple.
They hear, hey, TRO, we can open up the sports now and the things that weren't going can all go, but realistically, our schools had to have time to understand what are all the implications in this and can we do it?
The state's rules say as long as the team fits the criteria, the state will pay for COVID testing for football and water polo. San Diego's lawsuit says now all teams, including indoor sports like volleyball and basketball, must make specific COVID guidelines, test players 48 hours prior to games, and pay for the tests like the colleges and big leagues do. Hines says the problem is not all teams have the resources. That's why many schools have said they're not ready to play yet, which limits who gets to play who. Still, Hines says coaches who have started practices are determined to keep their kids and staff safe.
The ultimate person who would be responsible for coming in and say, hey, let us see your plan, or this isn't being done with your plan, would be the County Department of Health. They're the ones that would monitor and oversee that.
Rena Nakano, ABC 10 News.
San Diego County's temporary ruling that allows for all sports, high school and youth club levels goes until March 9th. At that time, if the county falls under the 14 per 100,000 case rate threshold, the court will decide whether to revert to the state guidelines or create another San Diego-specific set of rules.
All right, at the top of the hour, we told you about the third closure happening at the Petco Park Vaccine Superstation. Let's check in now with our ABC 10 News reporter, Anthony Pura, for an update. Anthony.
Steve, right now we are seeing cars of people just coming into the vaccination superstation here at Petco Park, but starting tomorrow it will be closed and it is expected to stay closed through Tuesday. Now, the county says that this closure is due to a shortage of vaccine supplies. This is the third closure for the Petco vaccination site, this one coming just as the county gave the green light for another 500,000 San Diegans to go get vaccinated starting tomorrow. Now, that involves law enforcement, food workers, and teachers. The Petco site only administers doses of the Moderna vaccine, and the county says sites that carry the Pfizer vaccine will not be impacted. Teachers will also not be affected as they are getting vaccinated through a different system. Now, UC San Diego Health partners with the county in running this Petco vaccination site, and the appointments that will be impacted by the closure, they will be notified through the UC San Diego Health System MyChart. They will be notified that way and will be prompted to be rescheduled. Anthony Pura, ABC 10 News.
Anthony, thank you for that update. House Democrats are continuing to push that nearly $2 trillion coronavirus relief package. That plan includes another round of $1,400 stimulus checks for most Americans, as well as billions of dollars for vaccines, COVID-19 testing, and money for small businesses and schools. The House bill also includes hiking the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, but Republicans are pushing back, and it appears that part of the bill will be dead on arrival in the Senate.
What does it happen to do with COVID? Does that put anybody back to work?
Lawmakers are hoping to get this legislation to President Biden's desk by mid-March. The hope is to get it signed before coronavirus federal unemployment benefits expire. And you can follow any new developments surrounding the pandemic by downloading our free mobile app. Just go to the App Store and search 10 News. And we continue to follow this breaking situation in Chula Vista. Over the last 24 hours, police have been dealing with a man who claims he killed his wife. Right now, the man is barricaded in a home on the 700 block of Glover Road. Police don't know for certain if the man has a wife, and if so, her condition at this point. You can see a kind of a SWAT vehicle right there in the picture. We also have this crew on the ground monitoring the situation. We'll give you any updates as we get them. La Mesa police will not discipline the officer who shot a beanbag round at a protester last May. Officer Eric Knudsen shot Leslie Forcron in the face during a protest, causing her serious injuries. Today, the police department announced an independent review of the case shows Knudsen's actions did not violate department policy. The DA also declined to press charges, but Forcron has filed a civil suit against Knudsen and the city. And arson investigators are now looking at a brush fire that sparked earlier today in Santee. Sheriff's deputies say that the fire broke out just before noon on a dry riverbed near Mass Park. A person was seen leaving the area where that fire started, carrying a gas can. Visitors at the nearby Carlton Hills Boulevard Park were evacuated as soon as a precaution was sent out. The blaze ended with burning only roughly 1/4 of an acre.
The Biden administration is defending the U.S. military airstrikes in Syria overnight. They say a targeted cluster of buildings used by Iranian-backed militia groups close to the border of Iran. These groups are believed to be responsible for the rocket strikes that hit a coalition base in Erbil, Iraq last week. The attack wounded 5 Americans. The Pentagon said the strike was proportional and that President Biden will act to protect American and coalition personnel. The military action has received bipartisan support in Congress.
You can't simply attack U.S. troops without any response, and yet the response that he decided upon was measured.
Local Kurdish authorities have also arrested 1 suspect in the attack on the U.S. bases in Iraq. The Treasury Department is rolling out new sanctions against Saudi officials after a government report detailed their involvement in the killing of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi. ABC's Karen Travers is in Washington with the latest.
This was a highly anticipated declassified intelligence report, and it directly implicates the Saudi crown prince in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. The U.S. intelligence assessment is blunt. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the 2018 assassination of Saudi dissident Jamal Khashoggi. Khashoggi, a U.S. resident, was brutally murdered inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. The Saudi government has blamed a team of what it called rogue government agents, but said the Crown Prince was not involved. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence Friday releasing a 4-page report that says it concluded the Crown Prince approved the murder based on his control of decision-making in the kingdom, the direct involvement of one of his key advisors and members of his protective detail, and his support for using violent measures to silence dissidents abroad, including Khashoggi. President Biden spoke Thursday with the Crown Prince's father, Saudi's King Salman.
Was it a good call?
Thank you.
Yes.
The official readout from the White House did not say if the 2 leaders spoke about Khashoggi's murder, the intelligence report, or the Crown Prince. Congress demanded this report be released in 2019, but then President Trump refused. He also repeatedly pushed back on the conclusion from U.S. intelligence that the Saudi Crown Prince was involved in Khashoggi's killing.
Whether he did or whether he didn't, he denies it vehemently.
The Biden administration today announcing sanctions against a former Saudi intelligence official, a close confidant of Mohammed bin Salman. But lawmakers from both parties are calling for sanctions against the Crown Prince. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
The USS Nimitz aircraft carrier pulled into San Diego today after a 10-month deployment. 5,000 sailors and Marines were assigned to the carrier strike group. The crew set sail 2 months earlier than planned due to the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Nimitz worked on operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia.
You know that we did a few safe haven port visits in Guam, in Oman, and in Bahrain to get a chance for some repairs and some resupply and a little bit of time for rest and relaxation for the crews. And we executed those within a bubble. And we're able to successfully prevent COVID infection to any member of the strike group throughout the entire deployment.
Some service members will stay with the ship to take her back to her home port in Washington.